Evening, everyone, in Heard Soul Network land. Another amazing person has shown up on the doorstep of Empowered Soul. I am so happy to share with Robin Eaton. She's actually from here in the Des Moines area. She is a spiritual guide, a way shower. She's helped so many people in this area. I just can't wait to hear more about your story, Robin, what you do. Welcome to Empowered Soul Network.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It's always fun to show up and have a good conversation.
There you go. There you go. Well, dive right into it. Take us on the journey of what has led you to become the kind of the spiritual leader, the mentor to a lot of people using your intuitive abilities. And so, how did that start out for you back in the day?
Back in the day, it started when I was a little kid. As a little kid, I used to see spirits. I had my own little tribe that walked me to school in the mornings, and I just didn't realize that wasn't normal, so to speak, until my parents sat me down and told me I had to quit making up stories about the visitors at night because it was scaring my sisters. And I didn't know, like here's my parents, the people I trust most, right? Because I'm a little kid at this point. I was probably only about 7 when this happened, and they told me, like, you're not really seeing those things. And I thought, well, if you don't believe me. So it was kind of tough as a kid because you have all these experiences, and I used to have prophetic dreams, right? I dreamt one night that we got in the station wagon, all of us, and we drove to this park. And my favorite cousin Marky was at the park, and there was the big rocket slide, and then we were all playing in the park, and my sister started screaming, and her leg bent all funny, and I woke up. Well, I woke up in my bedroom. My little sister is sleeping in her bed across the way. So, you know, big relief, right? Because at the time I was probably about 10 years old. Um, you know, well, we get up, we have breakfast, we all load into the station wagon, we drive hours to this park. It's got the rocket slide. My favorite cousin Marky is there. And pretty soon, we're on this, my sisters are on this swinging teeter-totter thing, and my baby sister starts screaming. She broke her leg. As a little kid, I thought I caused that because I dreamt it beforehand, right? So it took me a while to come back around to where I embraced like who I am and the whole intuitive side of things. And it kind of took that crisis of me to get there.
Wow. I hear so many stories about this. I mean, my own kids, I had that same kind of general experience. I did when I was growing up. And there's a certain aloneness I think that people feel. Can you speak to that a little bit? How that impacted you with friends and other people as you were growing?
It's really isolating, because I could feel what other people felt. I knew when people were lying to me, and I thought everybody knew, right? So it was very confusing to me, like, why are you still lying when we all know you're lying? Or why are you hiding the way that you really feel or how come you don't understand how much you just hurt me? Like, expecting that other people had the same sensory input and the same level of connection to that intuition. And so you know, I tried to run away from it. I tried to shut it down. I tried to, I kind of went back and forth. On the one hand, your friends when you're a teenager, some of them think it's cool, right? Like you're intuitive, and I started doing readings when I was in junior high, and we're playing around, and I mean, we're junior high girls, like which boy likes me, and how many kids am I going to have, things like that. But it also isolates you because it's, well, for example, I was doing these little mini readings with friends. We're having a slumber party, and then somebody decided, well, let's test it. Let's see if how accurate you are. So let's test it on my mom. Great, right? Because we were just doing the old trick where how many kids are you going to have, and what gender will they be, what order, right? So let's test it on mom. So we tested on mom. Only when we tested on mom, it's not accurate for what we know, right? Because what we know is she's got two daughters, and one of her daughters is my best friend, and we're all hanging out having this slumber party. Well, we tested on mom, and it comes out, I'm like, "Well, you had a little boy and then the two girls." And her mom starts crying. And this whole thing, and it all comes out that she did have a son, and she'd never told any of her family. Her
Uh,
husband didn't even know, right? So here I am, a teenager, trying to like fit in with my friends, and I've just outed my best friend's mom and created all this drama. I'm like, what do I do with this? Right. So then I'd back away from it. And then it was this push pull through so much of my life,
right.
because on the one hand, people are interested, and then you almost become like, I hate to say it, but it's almost like you become the circus act,
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, can you perform for us? And so that's isolating, because then you feel like you're not wanted around unless you're offering this service, trick, whatever. Like back then, I didn't see it as a service the way that I truly understand it to be today. Or it's isolating because other people don't have it in it, and it makes you weird and different, and you already feel weird and different because you have this extra stuff, you know? So it was hard.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I can relate. I tell everybody, I always get goosebumps and I'm getting them now. I relate to all that. So what do you feel, Robin, was maybe a beginning step that helped you turn the corner to let go of all the outer opinions and start to begin to trust and value these gifts that you had?
There have been a couple turning points for me.
Okay,
One, in college, I used to trade readings for beer, college student.
right.
So I was reading this girl's poem, and it got really intense. And things started coming out of my mouth that I'm like, I didn't know where they were coming from. And pretty soon, she's crying and I'm crying, and I'm like, I was like spitting out medical stuff that I had no idea, and telling this poor girl, like, if you don't make these big changes in your life, you've only got like 6 months left to live. You've got to, and as it's coming out of my mouth, I'm horrified. Like, you don't tell people these things, but I couldn't stop. So we're both like sitting there crying for different reasons. I'm crying because I'm like, oh my God, what have I just done? She's crying, and she finally explains to me because I gave her hope, because what she heard from me validated what the doctors had told her just a few days before. But what the doctors left out was that piece that I had given her, where I could see, like, you have the potential to turn all this around and have this beautiful long life. And so for her, that session, like, she walked away with hope and a renewed, like, and a commitment to make the changes that she needed to. So that was really defining for me, where what felt in the moment awful to me was this beautiful service to her that gave her hope. And so that was a real turning point for me, to see it through her eyes like that.
That beginning of the trust that I am actually in the right place in the right time with
Yeah,
what I'm experiencing and feeling and expressing. Is that what
right.
you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like letting it flow through, because that person who's receiving it really needs it in the moment. And if you trust in that, then it's all going to turn out okay. But when you try to hold it back, or when I try to, spin it, or, not give what wants to come through, that's when things get messed up. So it was the beginning of some of that trusting. It was the beginning of a very long journey to get to the place where I trusted, because that was in my 20s. And I would say it took me until I was in my 40s to really fully, okay, this is who I am, and let's go with it.
Couple of other steps, Robin, and I'm asking these questions because I know there are a ton of people that if they're watching this, a lot of them are going to resonate this, even if they have a different culture or faith background or whatever, it still speaks. They still sense. They still connect with God, or whatever that is. So what were a couple of the next steps that happened for you that kept you elevating a little bit?
I started learning more about energy work.
Okay.
I learned Reiki. I started exploring all the like positive thinking and the kind of the secret type stuff. And I started immersing my and surrounding myself more with teachers,
Okay.
seeking out teachers like Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer, who really, talked about, changing your thoughts and changing your life and trusting your intuition, trusting those things, listening to your body, because our bodies are always speaking about the internal energies and things. And I learned about chakras, and the more that I started learning about what I call the invisible world, the more my trust built, because it all connected back to the physical world. And I could start to see how everything weaves together. And that, it just clicked for me. It was like, oh, this is this missing piece that I wish somebody would have been teaching me when I was a little kid.
So how would you say then that when you hit the 40s, there was kind of like this plateau of acceptance where you finally were totally with it? What made that final shift for you?
Yeah, well, it was really a rock bottom kind of experience.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to be blunt, I was suicidal.
Okay.
I had gotten to a place in my life where I didn't like who I was. I didn't like the way I was living. I was hiding from everything. I was so afraid of living that I just was, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize that that's what was going on, but I was just terrified of being me and embracing all of this. And I just got to a place where I was ready to be done.
Okay.
And but I was ready to be done, but at the same time, I wasn't giving up, right? Like I was like, there's gotta be something more. And so I went to a Hay House conference. And so I met Wayne Dyer, and I met some of these people that, I'd been reading their books, and I'm like, if I go immerse myself with hundreds, thousands of people who all have this kind of mindset, and if they can't help me like flip a switch or like see something, open my eyes to something, then maybe it is time to call it quits. And so I went kind of with that, like, this is my last ditch effort. And I heard a woman speak, and it changed my whole perspective. And I couldn't tell you that she really said anything new. I mean,
Yeah.
I it's not like I hadn't heard it before, but I listened to Anita Morjani was the speaker, and she shares about how she died and what happened while she was dead, and why she came back, and how she came back healed. And it just got me to this place of maybe there's a different way. And so I created this new mantra for myself, and I laugh about it today, but even though like in the moment it's pretty sad, my mantra was like, okay, I can always kill myself tomorrow. Let me try living today.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It gives you the pendulum, the extremes of the pendulum, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can always go here,
Right.
but I might as well go here.
But let me try the other end of the pendulum. If I'm gonna go there, let me try this first, because
Right.
I mean, I might as well see where it takes me. And
So
and
when
yeah.
so in the shift where the pendulum started to take hold, or you jumped off the pendulum on this side,
Yeah.
what was it that you found? What happened? What was the light bulb, or what was it?
The light bulb was, what if I just trust in who I am? And what if I learn to like myself? What if I what if I start living instead of trying to keep myself in this safe little contained bubble where I do what everybody expects of me and I pretend that I don't have the knowing and I don't have the intuition and I don't see auras and I don't speak with spirits and so I was like, so what if I try going all the other way and come out of that spiritual closet and be like, listen, I know things. I can't tell you how I know them, but like I know things and I can see into the future and I can talk to spirits and all kinds of crazy stuff happens around me and it's real. And so it was just like, let me just go here and let me quit hiding it. And so I started talking about it and man, within months I was out doing readings. I bought an aura camera on the spur of a moment, like just felt like, oh, I got to do this.
Right.
Started hitting the psychic fairs with the aura camera and doing readings for people. And the more that I did that, it was I worked law enforcement at the time. And my partner, I had sent a picture to my partner Tony of me at the fair doing my thing. And he's like, I have never seen you so happy.
Beautiful.
Because it was me. Because I wasn't hiding anything, right? It's part of why I shaved my head. Was I used to hide behind my hair.
Right.
Like I had long hair and I would literally hide my face. And so one of the reasons that I shaved my head was I was just like, you know what? No more hiding. Let's live. Let's really, really live. And let's see how far I can go with this. And it just opened the whole world to me. And I got to this place where like I like who I am. I enjoy my life. I have this whole community of friends now and support where before I was so alone.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I love this interview because again, I can relate to all of what you're saying in my own ways. I think one of the things that I find that is so helpful to talk about, Robin, maybe you could address this, is I know there's a lot of people that hear this and they're not where you and I may be in all this, be doing readings and things like that. Yet they sense things, they feel things.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're so empathic that they don't know who they are. They pick up everybody else's stuff, and it's hard to tell what's me and what's not me, right?
Mhm.
What do you suggest to people who have that sensitivity and they're not going to go to psychic fairs. They're not even maybe getting a reading. What do you tell people about using what they have in a practical way in their job and with their family? And what are some hints for that?
Yeah. You know, cultivate the connection. One of the most powerful things I did for myself when I was learning to trust, because man, you have moments where you think, I'm crazy. I'm making all this shit up. You just like, you have these moments, right? And so I kept what I call a validation journal.
Okay.
And I started writing things down. If I had a premonition, if I sat down with somebody and I said the right thing at the right time and I got feedback from them. So I started keeping this validation journal of, or I asked for a sign about this and this showed up, or, you know, this showed up and I started writing it down. And so because I'm really analytical too, and
Mm-hmm.
I know how the brain works. I learned more and more about how our brains work too. And the brain likes evidence. So I built my own little book of evidence of this is real and you can trust in it. And I played with it instead of working at trying to get better at it. Because I do believe we're all intuitive and practice makes all the difference. But it's all about having fun with it because if you're working at it, you're not relaxed. And so it's really hard to open up and it's hard to build trust when you're all tensed up. And so I played games. I played games where like I'd be at the putting gas in my car and I'd guess what number the pump is going to stop at, right? Or I'd be about to meet a friend for lunch and I would guess what color shirt they're going to wear. So I played games with my intuition and with my abilities that it didn't matter if I got it right or wrong. It was just a game. Or I'd play a game of how many signs can I find today? Or I'm, like I played little games with the universe. Who is it? Pam Grout has a book, I think E Squared, where she has all these little games that you can play, right? And so I did some of those things and like, okay, universe, in the next 3 days, bring me an unexpected gift, right? And then you wait to see what shows up. And so the more you play with it, the more relaxed you get with it, and the more you cultivate it.
Yeah, and you could do that with somebody at the job, or or whatever, or just just taking that. I sometimes ask people that have a certain bent or twist that is their dogma or their mantra about how they should do things. Saying to them, okay, well that's great, but if somebody doesn't believe that, what's a hint of how they could do something
Right.
to enforce? And a whole lot of people say, well, the first thing I do is I just take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath and relax. Anybody can do that, no matter what you believe in. And so that practice, I hear you say that practicality of just getting out there and I guess one of the big messages I'm hearing you say is don't worry about what other people think.
No, because the moment we start comparing ourselves to other people or worrying about what they think is we start shutting ourselves down. And that's when we start
Yeah.
putting on a mask and trying to be somebody maybe that we're not, because we're trying to impress or we're trying to avoid getting hurt. And I really embraced what I call the four nothings, right? That I have nothing to prove to anybody, right? Including myself. I don't have to prove anything. I have nothing to defend. There's nothing to defend. There's nothing to hide. And so I have nothing to protect, right? So if I'm just me and I'm good with who I am, then I can let go of all those things. I don't have to protect myself from anybody else, because if you don't like me, that's okay, because I like me. Right? And frankly, I don't like every person I come across either. We're not all meant to live, in like to be buddies. We all have our own people that we gravitate to, and that's
Right.
okay. Right? It's learning to allow for those things. Like it's okay if somebody doesn't like me. And that was a tough one.
Right. So you got nothing to prove, nothing to protect, nothing to defend. Was there a fourth one?
Prove, defend, and nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide.
Yeah.
What down to earth rooted lessons, right?
I'm all about being like practical, because we live in this world, and the more that I trust my intuition, the more that I have that connection open, the more that it helps me in my day-to-day things of like, I mean, it's the simple things of you're driving down the road and suddenly you just have this urge to take a different route.
Yeah,
Trust in it. Take a different route, because there's you're avoiding something, or
yeah,
it's steering you towards something that's important. And so it's the little practical things of like that can make a world of difference in our lives. Um,
beautiful, beautiful. Robin, what would you say? So there could be people from all over the world that are going to see this. I've interviewed people in probably 10 or 15 different countries now, and so on. And a lot of people want to be live with somebody face to face, like a reading like you do. But whether it's online or whether it's live in person, somebody's searching for somebody to coach them or help them. What would you say would be a couple of signals or hints or ways to go find somebody? How do you recognize somebody that's going to connect with you like that to help you? How do you choose?
that's a really good question. How do you choose? For me, it's somebody that makes me feel empowered, right? Um, I always feel better after our interaction, even if that person has called me out hard on something that like I really needed to hear, but they do it in a way that leaves me feeling like that's empowering. That's something really useful, and I'm grateful for it. And it's going to change things for me. So it's a it's so much about how they make you feel, and trusting that. Um, I personally don't believe in gurus, don't believe in like many teachers. I really am a big believer in many teachers, many mentors, because we all are filtering things in our own way. And Paul, you could say something and I say something, and we're saying the same thing, but we're saying it in our own way. And the same person listening might hear it from you and not hear it from me.
That's right. Yeah.
And the next person hearing the same message from the two of us might not hear it from either of us because they're not ready to hear it. And the next
Right.
person might hear it from me, but not from you. And the next person might hear it from both of us. It's so important that we don't limit ourselves. And so that's another thing I look for is I don't trust anybody who wants to isolate me and I'm not, and like, you have to only follow this one path. Because to me, there are a whole lot of ways. There are many paths up the mountain, and they all lead to the same place. And so find the one that you'll walk, find the path that you're willing to take.
Great, wonderful advice, wonderful wisdom on all that. I think one of the clues for me has always been, is somebody helping me find my own answer, or are they trying to tell me what to do?
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I hear you saying in that way, is that they empower you, not just empower, but further empowerment of themselves, in that. That's a good clue.
Yeah.
I always love to, as we wrap up the interviews, I love to ask this two-part question. I think you'll appreciate it and enjoy it. If you were to say, what would you say, being the Robin of today to the Robin of 30 years ago, or whatever? What would you say to that person from back then, today?
Yeah. I would tell her that when fear shows up, dive into it. Don't turn away from it. Don't let it stop you. Dive right in, because all the good stuff is on the other side of fear.
Beautiful. Oh, that gave my goosebumps some goosebumps. Wow. Okay, so here's the other part to that. What would the Robin of long ago say about the Robin that she's observing of today?
Oh, wow. um Paul, you're gonna get me all teary-eyed. I think she'd be proud of me. I think she would recognize me as who we were always meant to be.
How would she describe that?
Oh,
Well, one word.
radiant.
I had a lady earlier today, she said resilient.
Ooh, I like that too.
Yeah, isn't that a good word? Yeah, radiant, resilient. There you go, Robin Eaton,
Yeah.
radiant, resilient. Robin, how can people get in touch with you?
The easiest way is to go to my website, which is soul, SOUL, touched by robin.com.
Beautiful. There you go. So as we wrap up here, everybody, make sure that you go to see the live broadcast of this. Robin, put your information down in the comments there, so people can connect, tag some people if you want. And I know that people will enjoy listening to this and passing it along. So, well, Empowered Soul Network team, there you go. Robin Eaton from Des Moines. We got so many cool people in Des Moines, Iowa. I'm telling you that I'm loving interviewing my neighbors here. This is just awesome. So, Robin, thank you so much for being on Empowered Soul Network.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you go, folks. Got another one coming up here in about a half an hour, so stay tuned. Robin, I'll end the recording and stick around for just a minute.